Dear friends, I'm glad to see you all. It is Thursday, August 11th, 1 minute past 10 Kiev time, and we're doing a day 169 stream with Olexiy Arestovich. Good evening, Olexiy. Hello. We have over 120,000 watching us live, about 20 click the like button. As always, I know that people troll me about it, but still, you need to subscribe and promote that stream. This is the only tool to promote these videos. Don't be lazy, don't be shy, subscribe to everything and to the privateer station if you have not done that in English yet. Olexiy, what is happening on the fronts? The fronts are sort of frozen, awaiting the unfolding events to happen. Similar events in Kharkov area, they're trying to shoot up Dementivka village. In Izum area, we are pushing back at them, moving south to north. They're still trying to attack Siversk, no success. Bakhmut, no success. They're not successful because they don't have enough forces left after their maneuvers and moving down south, or because the front has somewhat streamlined and it's more difficult to do anything there. It's a sum of different things. The front is more streamlined. Our troops have more reinforcements. Our opponents, as idiots, lost most of their troops in the previous attacks. And they keep screaming that they don't have enough qualified infantry. So they cannot break through in Pesky, they cannot get through near Marinka. They tried to get to Ugledar and Pavlovka, didn't work out. Zaporozhye direction, minor tactical skirmishes. In Kherson area, they got hit near Davidov Brod, near Novaya Kakhovka. Military forces of Ukraine started nightly shelling of the military targets of the occupants. It's nice, Mark, when we were talking here, the targets are being hit. Yeah, it's nice. Every evening they'll get presents. Almost like old days disco. Here it comes. What's up with Kherson? All's good there. We're working on that target. The sky around Kherson is being painted with a lot of explosions. There are a lot of military targets there. And, of course, we had a couple of air sirens going off on our part of Ukraine during 2 hours. Russians did try to hit us as well. They shelled Zaporozhye nuclear power plant again today. There was a statement from Safety Council of the United Nations. We'll talk about that separately. All right, so yeah, we are observing that, and that is one of probably more exciting topics on the front for the news today. Yeah, not many changes, but as is. All right, let's take a look at Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. I think Security Council already started, right, with our time difference. The subject of that council is discussion of safety of Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, and there were messages today. One of the reactors was on fire, then there was a message it was not. No, the reactors are not on fire, they're hitting next to them, but they do create that picture. They do not want exactly to hurt that power plant, as we understand, but they're hitting the empty spaces around it, trying to provide enough pressure and scare us. And they're also attacking Nikopol. They wanted to paint that they're targeting military detachments in the area, but for now it is initiative is on our side. We do have proof where they're hitting. And some people are suggesting to create a demilitarized zone. So I don't understand. What do you mean demilitarized zone? Do you all withdraw your troops from that area, or some third-party troops appear? Demilitarized is when there's no troops in the area. So Russians withdraw, we do not come in, and there's some basic personnel left to perform the working functions. Before, there used to be some of the National Guard protecting it. These days, I understand they would not let that in, so some police force need to be there to protect that as well, to even perhaps protect the area from the vandals. And that's an interesting precedent. It's a second item in this war that technically is being discussed not to be part of that war. The first one was the grain supply in the ports. This is the second one. So Russia is trying to achieve certain parts. They cannot, perhaps it's too early to assign it to Kremlin, but it's sort of in their favor that they're stopping some fight. They cannot stop the fight on the whole front, but they do want to create certain areas that they want to freeze. So back in the day, Clausewitz was describing what should be called an ideal war. Ideal war is like an ideal gas that doesn't exist in nature, because none of the wars is being done at 100%. Even the Soviet Union during the Second World War, when the question was about their survival, they perhaps used 85% of their power on the front. We have to remind people that there were big detachments in Siberia, there were troops in Iran, there were troops in the Far East, and of course industrial part was also producing not just military supplies, they were producing of course the daily items and other things not related to the front. So all these factors, looking at the current Russian army, that's part of why they cannot continue with their offensive. They're not nowhere near percent-wise fighting this war. How should I put that? Russian military, just by their wish to create these areas where Ukraine cannot come back, that they lost most bullets in their gun, and they need to ask for zones where there is no fighting happening. It means that the country does not want to have an active war phase, and they're looking to stop fighting. And that's it, in about 6 months. I want to say here that aggression is good when it happens fast. Like Americans dethroned Hussein in Iraq, like Germans did their blitzkrieg in Poland. But when aggression turns down into a month or two, it is an unsuccessful one. It is a failed aggression. All right, so another subject to bring up, China in relation to situation with Zaporozhye power plant, nuclear power plant. I understand this is a transcript from discussion. China is calling upon Ukraine and Russia to sit down at the table of negotiations. Similar statements are made by many countries, including members of Security Council, but each country is pulling their own side, we understand. General Secretary did comment that there are no negotiations about international force at the nuclear plant. both sides have enough capacity to provide for safety of that area. I do not believe Moscow just leaving Zaporozhye nuclear power plant area. They basically need it only as a reason, another reason to talk about peace talks. I also don't believe that, Mark. This is just a playing card for them. And here our president is coming with his statement too. He said that any disaster at that nuclear power plant will be equal to Russia using nuclear weapons in this war. So he just equalized that activity. So what's the current position of Russian Federation? They need to, what's their options? To continue to negate the facts that it's them who is shelling the station. And if anything happens, everybody warned them, everybody pushed them, everybody told them to leave. But to leave that area is also, for the eyes of their internal audiences, to be weak. This is a display of weakness, so they'll probably figure something idiotic, and they'll be walking around the station, putting a lot of political statements out. And the question is, will they fall into the area that they dread to fall into, or they won't, in terms of disaster? But it is obviously an attempt to create another cause for negotiations. They created, they used the crisis of 2015 with the refugees to sit down. They created a crisis on the Belarus border to talk to the West. They created another crisis with the repetition of their war to pull Biden into negotiations in a very, as a very last option. They start maneuvering their planes. If some fly over NATO military object. So they're basically acting as terrorists. They're taking hostages and forcing people to talk to them. And if you don't talk to them, then bad things will happen. Yeah, we do need to talk about that terrorist issue with Russia. Don't rush. We'll talk about this subject. That deserves a separate part of this discussion. We need to, so to say, to smoke on that subject here. Let's talk about Belarus. On the airfield near Gomel, did somebody smoke there, or something flew in, or what happened? What do you say? You, as the person declared terrorist in Belarus, you probably are the one doing all that. Tell me something. What happened on the airfield? I do leave the boundaries of Kiev, Mark, sometimes, but not everything is ascribed to me. I'm not so mighty to pull everything. I wanted to say that according to Belarus, two military vehicles collided, and one Panzer and one S-300 collided with each other and burnt. So, as I understand, in Russia they're smoking in wrong places, in Belarus they're not driving too well, they're just getting into auto accidents all the time. So I got an idea, just pulling something from collective unconsciousness, subconsciousness. So to formulate that, it comes something like that. If to concentrate complexes, that military systems that may harm Ukraine, especially near some dates or specific times that are worthy of news, that sooner or later maneuvering of these systems causes accidents, collisions, and more of them may collide again and again. They're listening to us and thinking, I'm quite sure. Yeah, you'd think. So, second time, they're pointing at themselves. As jail folklore, you don't show it on yourself. That's a bad sign, bad omen. But yeah, they keep pointing at themselves, saying, hey, it's us. We crushed them. Yeah, Mark, we're laughing here. Why not? Yeah, I understand. But I think our viewers may not fully grasp what is happening on strategic level. Historians will speak about these moments. This is the strategic days of the break in this war. This is what's happening now. And we're like small fish in the ocean, but if you can zoom out and see the bigger picture, the bigger ocean, a pretty big Russian army that started this war on all directions with plans to take Kiev in 3 days, to get as far as Lvov on the whole Ukraine territory, hitting us by 150 missiles, strategic missiles daily. On the 6th month, we're discussing them taking over a shed in a village. I understand. This is quite a statement, quite a progression of this war. This time frame, half a year for the second army in the world, this is a catastrophe. Just not all people get it. The war for the shed, it's still motivating. And yeah, I want to bring that subject up, because people are used to think about certain facts. Javelin blew the tank apart, they took certain building, the quadricopter dropped a bomb, a grenade or something on troops. But zoom out and look at the strategic goals the war started with. What Putin started, his size of claims and his aspirations at the beginning. And right now, he's begging for additional resupplies, he's changing targets, he's changing dates. So they pretty much, as in an old anecdote, de-evolved two mice. So this catastrophe needs to materialize, right? There's got to be some big changes coming out of it. We're waiting for it. Commander of the Black Fleet, I heard, is being removed. Is he the guy who was there during the hit? Yeah, he's been the commander for quite a while. And there was another statement today that 40% of generals who are planning operation against Ukraine are being investigated. Well, it's difficult to check it. Well, our general command in Ukraine doesn't really publish things that they have not verified. I understand, but it's difficult to verify 40%, right? You need to really get that data. Well, I understand your sentiment, but the key circle of people who are planning that campaign is very small. So it's pretty easy to figure out what the percentage is if some of them are being investigated. Even if the question is not even exactly about the number, even if it is 10%. By the way, 4 or 5 commanders of the armies have been removed and criminally investigated already. So Putin is replacing the higher level of his military machine, and I wonder if the middle level of his military machine will just stay mum. Will they react to that, or will they just swallow it and we'll see, Olexiy. I'll say where it converts to, where these events should convert to. I'm leading to the fact that the spring that did not work out outwards will work inwards. I want people to understand that catastrophes of that scale, they do launch unavoidable processes and questions about trust, level of trust to the government that was behind that operation. Some shakedown in Russia will happen, it's inevitable. There's no scenario where Russia loses this war and nothing happens in it. That is not how it will fall down. regimes are being turned by events like that. I want to remind one Chinese situation in '78 before the Chinese conflict with Vietnam. Deng Xiaoping wanted to change the structure they had in Russia, but back in the day, the leader of the territory was also administrative and economic and military leader of the area. And only after China losing that war with Vietnam, Deng Xiaoping got an opportunity or political window to change political power in the country. Same thing happened when, remember that pilot Rost landed on the Red Square? Soviet Union started changing its military, right? The military head was removed. Same thing when in 16 the military coup in Turkey did not work out. Erdogan managed to gain control of over the military and filter them and remove a bunch of them. Military catastrophes, they usually launch systems like that. They use consequences like that. So big disasters like this, big failures like this is a grandiose size. I can't even remember anything similar to that in the Russian history to that scale. You could somewhat compare it to the catastrophe of the 1941, but back then Soviet Union was defending, not offending. There was a Finland campaign, but Stalin was smarter and he did play around this event. And he probably would not have survived the war in Finland if he had not eliminated the military leaders before that. But even then, Russian army, Red Army, managed to adapt and change in about 3 months after that war. So I think this war and this catastrophe will become a milestone for the Russians in the future, for the Russian history. And I want to address Russian citizens, and not only them, but this event cannot stay quiet. The failure like that, they cannot, your soldiers just cannot come back home and have veteran organizations, and Russia continues as earlier, just a bit in its own space because it's isolated from everybody else. No, it will continue, and there'll be more issues coming up. There'll be frustration, the losses, the dead people, and that Russian revolt, as the classic said, senseless and merciless. It is on the horizon. So it's the question of who will lead it and what will happen. Over 390,000 are watching us live, over 100,000 likes. Medvedev, that Putin's boy, Dmitry Medvedev, was sent to LNR, and I think he's got some people with him. Bortnikov and Kolokoltsev are following him, and the Minister of Construction, right? I cannot fathom why does that boy needs two ministers along. So what's the picture? He's making a sad face. He is displaying that he is thinking about things for the video cameras, but it appears that all that is dedicated to the referendum and to how can they do it. How will they join Lugansk and Donetsk pseudo-republics along with the Kherson, probably, or Zaporozhye. And in Mariupol, as you saw, they're actually building outside some cages near the theater or whatever is left there in the city. They're trying to make probably a show of court, a kind of traveling court. Yeah, some stuff like that. The point is they're going to adjudicate not one person, not one person being accused, but probably a big group of military that are being accused, probably representatives of the Azov detachment and other Ukrainian military. And since there are no other courts in the area, perhaps pronounce all these guys guilty and worthy of and the punishment of death. So this picture, I think they need that picture for their own people in Russia to supply the idea, to support the idea that they're continuing with denazification, and then we'll just blow everybody up there and get rid of them. So what's your opinion on this preparation? I know it's a kind of rhetorical question. Anything to prevent it? Anything to affect it? How can you look at all this devil's theater? This, of course, is the play for the inner audience, because in Russia there is a protest that Azov was not punished, that they could not do anything with them. For them, the only pause in their thinking would be affected by a big group of Russian prisoners of war. That's about the only tool that I can think of that effectively can leverage the exchange, even with the ones they can pronounce guilty and give them the punishment by death. I don't think they'll expedite this decision. They'll keep them for exchange. So, who would be the juiciest for an exchange from their point of view? You understand that any other collaborants who maybe, or the pilots who was given a life sentence and then that was diminished to 15 years. Oh, I think it's Kadyrov people. Chechens would probably be the best group to be captured. And also people of rare military specialties. Of course, pilots, more of them, not just one. But I understand even if it is a lot of infantry, they'll still exchange infantry. Not so happily as the other special ones, but if you have enough of them, they will sit down and discuss the exchange. But another point, this is a Geneva Convention case. It blanketly covers all Ukrainian military. You cannot prosecute official military warfighters according to Geneva Convention. So this needs to cause a certain condemnation of the international audience, because of course, yeah, a court of one country is always has always certain leaning, especially in the war conflicts. The court of a single country is not capable of giving out the neutral judgment. So, of course, Russia will never give it up to the international court, but the international community will work on them if they start the proceedings. I just don't like repeating the usual words. There'll be international organizations and other systems involved. But technically, they're prisoners of war. And I suspect Russians will not follow through with any of these prosecutions. Well, you know, there may be a lot of other people you can exchange. Yeah, like whom? Like relatives of Russian people. Oh yeah, there are a lot of relatives of high-ranking Russian officials living in Ukraine. But Mark, we're not fighting with relatives. We're not fighting with elderly ladies who live in Ukraine because their son is an asshole. But do you think they call upon their sons and talk to them, telling that their sons are assholes? Well, will not be affecting these citizens. We will not be even talking about their identities, because this is not what we do, Mark. We're not fighting with relatives. We're fighting a defensive war. Regarding Medvedev, he does not understand what is happening. He is being put in the limelight. He's being made a figure in this war. He's a drunk. Yeah, he's often drunk on camera. His wife left him, and he's probably following through the alcohol disintegration of his personality. Any normal person would realize that this mission sucks. Do not want to go into that. Look how Kirienko jumped out of this mission. He used to be the one traveling on these errands before. Now Medvedev is the one being sent. I can imagine how Kiriyenko wiggled himself out. He really detested coming here for all that work. It's like Lavrov for 8 years was snaking out from Crimea or visiting Crimea, and I think probably at the end, after Crimean platforms, he was finally pressed by Putin. He was sent to Crimea and he appeared on camera upset and angry and making statements that were not par. But yeah, Medvedev is a whole other clown thing. He's a more simpleton. He's the one who appeared on videos with underwear pulled up to his armpits. So he was basically from the back, from his history, he was the son of a professor from Kupchina area in Moscow. It's like growing up in a pretty rough part of town where you're little and you generally cannot fight back. So his childhood was pretty rough. So you think Putin talks to him with threats? Dima, you have to go. It's kind of interesting. For a long time, it seemed that they have good relations with Putin. But I think right now it is more of a kind of cruel joke in there. And the only position of Medvedev in that government of Putin's, he is alive only because Putin somewhat protects him. You know, in a specific culture of criminals, you have to bring a stick to the boss formally for a punishment. I think Dima ran for that stick quite a few times, and he just keeps running these runs for the stick. Perhaps bring it back in his mouth, in his teeth. Yeah, he probably is doing that too. You need to be a complete idiot to subscribe to all that theater. But Kiriyenko's jumping off that mission was a sort of genius move to save his butt, and probably the main thing is putting Medvedev into that mission. By the way, Kiriyenko, according to some Kremlin rumors, is holding a meeting about making changes to the Russian citizenship law, about canceling or changing the dual citizenship. So it's a sophisticated subject. There are different legalities involved, but basically they do want to limit and dual citizenship, and it is a reaction that Latvia did vote to call Russia a sponsor of terrorism. Also, Latvia, Estonia, Sweden, Finland, Bulgaria, these countries want to limit the issuance of visas to Russian citizens. And German Stolz already commented that, oh yeah, we will not discriminate that. Germany will not join that bandwagon. But our Minister of Foreign Affairs Kuleba already addressed German statement. He did say that we do differentiate Russians who are not supportive of war, but there definitely is a big amount of Russians who do support, who are in favor of war. So there has to be some consequences to that. So we'll see how that unfolds. But the term that Russia is a country sponsoring terrorism, and also the matter of limiting issuance of visas to Russians, many people don't realize that is a very serious subject. In reality, systems that are providing additional security and safety in Europe, they do involve visa decisions. So you think, of course, Ukraine will follow with their current position. They will insist on that visa limitation for Russian citizens. There are two more things we can bring to light in this regard. In Copenhagen, there was a meeting of ministers of defense of northern countries. And at the same time, Britain got Danish, Swedish, Finnish instructors to continue to add to training to Ukrainian soldiers. Danish instructors are actually great in storming in infantry preparations, so they do have a great school of how to storm fortifications. That's something that we need. They retained that from the First and Second World Wars. They're strong. So these instructors are going to Britain. And now let's remember British initiatives about visits to northern countries. Remember, there were talks about the union of Britain and the Baltic countries and Ukraine when Johnson was in power there. So this subject is just starting to grow. These are just the first green leaves on this matter. These are results of the politics, I think, that Johnson and his government demonstrated. But the whole bloc of northern countries of Europe are starting to make collective decisions. And visas is also supported mostly by the northern ones, and it is another consolidated position, another thing that you cannot be able to say, oh, it's just Sweden or just Latvia. There likely will be more and more from European Union joining it, and guys like Stolz will need to recognize the importance of that step. So, yeah, European Union has already issued a statement that they're holding discussions about the visa regimes for Russian tourists. So, A, they're discussing, B, even if they do not come to a joint conclusion about visas, they will likely still limit certain things. Perhaps add additional filters, limit certain categories. So probably they'll leave the ones who can come. People who have relatives in Europe, humanitarian organizations, and maybe Russian media persons. But yeah, Russian media persons, that's a whole separate bucket of snakes. 423,000 watching us and clicking likes. Please subscribe, the usual ask, to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station, if you're watching that in English and have not subscribed to that yet. Okay, we do have a stream tomorrow, right, Olexiy? Yeah, I think we do. We might have some surprises, because head of the office, Andrei Yermak, there is another commission besides Yermak Makfol. There is a commission for safety of Ukraine, Yermak Rasmus, and they came up with a document. So that's an interesting one, where Western nations also appear as co-signers to provide some security. So it's curious who and what guarantees are happening. Do you understand what is happening? This is basically an organization of the after the war world setup. These are the contours of the setup. And if they're discussing that and signing things without him, without Putin already, he is lost. He has lost. People understand that. He is out of the picture. And these initiatives about limiting visa issuance, about acknowledging Russia as a country terrorist, they could not have happened in vacuum. They likely would be on hold or would be much quieter if Putin still represented a serious threat to them. So it appears they have calculated probability of his threat to be minimal. So yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Please bring the document and let's discuss. I also want to mention that your interview with Gordon, a famous Ukrainian journalist, had a significant splash in the media zone. And even in our show chat and messages, I need to address our audience. I'm not Yermak with Arestovich. I do not work for him, and I do not get myself involved in inner politics of Ukraine. I think that show had more irony in it. Yeah, let me also tell you, discussions about any elections and the time when the country is in active war phase, this is not serious. Of course, this is irony. Okay. So, of course, I do support our president and our head of military. Any discussions and questions about are you going to become our next president, I need to either lie or find a way to answer that. Now, everything was fun. I liked the interview. I was laughing out loud, having chips. So that was even laughing probably too much. My neighbors not. Have you seen the parody about us? There is a guy, Barvinko from Barvinko, who's showing us one with like a double chin representing me. He looks funny, so if you see them online, they're pretty cute. I also wanted to bring our new designs. Our NFT project continues, it did not disappear. We had some stalling happening there, probably mostly related to some things happening on the cryptocurrency market, but we are still discovering amazing artists who are creating these wonderful works of art. So please share that. Perhaps you can bring another artist in, even if you cannot buy anything there yourself. We have more considerations about other digital initiatives, but there are a lot of cute pictures here, good for different avatars to be used in the online platforms. See our new designs, Heimers and Javelin. Previous version was Feygin and Arestovich. Now there is Heimers and Javelin taking over. I think this is also a good picture. And all the money we collect from that is going to charity. And this is a Ukrainian storefront. Some aprons with our new design, totes, t-shirts. So come check it out. Oh, yeah, last thing I wanted to address today. I did say that Daria Kupnaya, who drew that design, she's from Slavutich, she's not from Kharkov. I made a mistake there. By the way, this is a city of nuclear engineers. Yes. It's got a very interesting architecture. Every part of that city was being built by different republic of USSR, so they're very not like each other. There's a museum of Bernik there, and there's also the sci-fi writer who was a member of the Ukrainian Helsinki group, who wrote a series of books who is similar, probably on par with Stanislav Lem. So like this one, Star Corsair. He's got interesting ideas there as a great sci-fi author. And there is a museum of that guy in Slavutich. People who work on Chernobyl nuclear power plant, they have good imagination, those physicists. We don't even have museum of this guy in Kiev, but they do have it in Slavutich. Kind of reminiscent of Arthur Clarke, right? Yeah, I do love this guy and the city. He's a great author. City is awesome. Very different blocks. One looks like Georgia, one looks like Ukraine. So curious. If you have a chance after the war, please come visit. It's a great place. I need to visit it. Yes, after the war, I cannot come right now because, if I come now, people will be attacking me on the streets saying, we do need the streams, we do need the daily streams. Well, perhaps we can do a live stream out there in the streets. All right. Yeah, we got interesting questions. People are even asking us for mini-series about our shows and other events happening around this war. Anyway, the main goal is for Putin to lose it and Ukraine to win. Everything else are side effects. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Olexiy. Thank you, dear viewers. Please subscribe and see you tomorrow.